cure is going through. No cure is going through. Since we have been protesting, we have not heard any reasonable result. So we want out Buhari to come and address us. If not possible in Aso Rock, you should come down to Lagos and address the citizens. That's what we can do.
The story of Kenechukwu Okeke is one of ambition, conflict, and ultimately tragedy. You see, to many Nigerians, Kenechukwu Okeke is one man who stood firmly in defense of the government, even when millions were crying out for change. He was relentless and outspoken, and even willing to silence opposition no matter the cost.
Many of the people we have assigned to protect our citizens have shown themselves unworthy of that calling.
We are not afraid of anybody. Our country, we own the land.
Their actions betray our trust and wreak unquantifiable damage on the already frayed fabric of our society. We have long expected the Nigerian police force to police itself. It is now abundantly clear that this was the wrong call.
So in 2020, 3 years into the President Muhammadu Buhari administration, Nigeria was on the brink. The youth were fed up with the years of unchecked police brutality. So they flooded the streets in what became the dences movement, a protest against the notorious Special Anti-Robbery Squad, SARS. This protest was a cry for justice, accountability, and of course, the reform of the Nigerian police force.
I therefore call on our youth to discontinue the street protests and constructively engage government in finding solutions. Your voice has been heard, loud and clear, and we are responding.
So now here is the main point. So where others saw injustice in what the police were doing and coupled with the economic hardship, Kenechukwu Okeke saw nothing wrong with what was happening. As far as he was concerned, the government and the police are not the problem of Nigeria.
The Special Anti-Robbery Squad of the Nigerian Police, otherwise known as SARS, is hereby dissolved across all formations, the 36 state police commands, and the Federal Capital Territory, where they currently exist.
So Kenechukwu Okeke is a lawyer and an activist. He publicly opposed or stood against the dences protesters. To him, the movement was not a fight for justice but an incitement to violence and disorder in the country. Now, he filed different lawsuits against celebrities like Wizkid, like Fast, like Burna Boy, and several other people, accusing them of fueling destruction of government and private properties. So he even targeted the CNN, claiming its report on the protest painted Nigeria in a negative light. He once declared, and I quote, "The law must not bow to popularity. What is right must be defended, no matter who stands against it." So for his actions, Okeke became a lightning rod for public anger. So he was praised by some, but others saw him as someone who stood against the progress of Nigeria. In fact, on social media, many branded him as an opportunist, seeking attention from the government. But Okeke remained resolute, and at some point, he made it clear, and I quote, "I'm doing what no one else will. Justice is not a popularity contest." End of quote. Now, while Okeke was making headline nationwide, a much quieter, more personal battle was playing out in his home in Ukpo, Anambra State. Now, Okeke was a landlord. Among his tenants was this man called Chiadobe, a man who would ultimately become the cause of Okeke's untimely death. Now, Chiadobe and Okeke had not been in good terms for months. According to the story, the tenant was causing trouble or nuisance in the compound, and Okeke asked him to pack out from the house. Like, he issued a quick notice to this man, demanding Chiadobe to vacate the property. But the tenant, Chiadobe, refused to leave, alleging that Okeke had withheld a portion of his rental deposit. So Chiadobe was said to have made threats and warning Okeke. Okeke reported these threats to the police, filing multiple complaints. But like so many others in Nigeria, his cries cries for help went unanswered. So on October 17, 2021, that was the day tragedy struck. It was a Sunday afternoon, a time when most Nigerian families were either resting or preparing for the week ahead. So in Okeke's home, the atmosphere was pretty much okay until the unthinkable happened. So Chiadobe arrived at the house with a group of men. They were armed and their intent was clear. They forced their way into the compound. Okeke's wife, Mrs. Blessing, later recounted, and I quote, "We didn't know what was happening. They burst into the house like madmen." So Okeke stood his ground, trying to reason with the intruders, but words were no match for the rage that filled the house. So Chiadobe and his gang attacked with machetes, sticks, and some other stuff as they slashed at him mercilessly. His wife and young daughter could only watch in horror. Their pleas for mercy fell on deaf ears. Then came the final and unimaginable act. The attackers poured fuel on Okeke, and in split second they lit him on fire. Neighbors who heard the commotion rushed into the scene, only to find Okeke engulfed in flames. A witness will later say, and I quote, "We could hear him screaming. It was like a nightmare." Okeke was rushed to the hospital and his body was covered in burns. So for a few days, he clung to life, conscious enough to recount the event to the authorities. He said weakly from his hospital bed, "I warned them this would happen, but no one took me serious." Now, despite the effort of the doctors, the injuries were too severe. On October 22nd, 2021, Kenechukwu Okeke gave up the ghost. Yes. Now, in the wake of Okeke's death, public outcry forced the police to act. Chiadobe was arrested. The case reignited debate about Nigerian justice system. How could a man who had reported threat against his life multiple times to the police be left so vulnerable? So Okeke's death goes to show the failure of the system he had spent all his life defending. To his supporters, he was a hero, a man who stood for law and order, no matter the cost. Now, to his detractors, his death was seen as a grim irony. A man who defended a broken system falling to the same system he defended. Blessing Okeke, now a widow, lamented, and I quote, "The system he believed in failed him. We begged the police to help us, but they didn't." Now, Kenechukwu Okeke's story is not just about one man's rise and fall. It's a story about Nigeria, a nation where justice often feels like a distant dream, where the law can be a weapon for the powerful and a shield that fails when it's needed the most, especially in the hands of the poor. The tragedy of Kenechukwu Okeke forces us to ask difficult questions about the kind of nation we really want to build. Change will not come easily, but let Okeke's story inspire us to demand more from our leaders, from our institutions, and even from ourselves. This is not just Okeke's story. It's a story of our nation. It's a story about us as a people. It's a story about what we truly believe. Let us do better. Let us help this country to grow, and let the agencies of government, let the people in authority be responsive and be responsible for the lives of the citizens they sought to protect. This is where I'm going to draw the curtain of this video. Please do like, share, and subscribe.